Welcome to Changing the Narrative. I'm your host, Cecil Grant, with our special guest, John Harris. He was here last time with us, and we talked about the ebbs and flows of being retired. Today, we're going to dive into a different topic, although in the future, we're probably going to go back to the retirement topic because I got a lot of conversations started, and it's a pretty important thing as we're going through it. But today, we want to talk about biracial, not only relationships, but biracial children. It's a race conversation, but the focus being on biracial. The genesis of me wanting to do this is I have two biracial grandsons. And so I want to understand what they're going to be going through as they grow older. And John has been kind enough to want to help discuss this topic. You can look at him and tell he's biracial.
Not always.
Not always. Depends on who you're talking to, right? Yeah. John was going to show some pictures of his family, starting with his parents and moving into his family, and then a big family picture of his sisters and their kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews, and just a very huge, diverse picture of family members. So, John, discuss your family, the origin from your parents to your family, and then to the greater family.
So my family started, my mom and dad, my dad was in the Air Force, met my mom in England when he was stationed over there. She was from Ireland. My dad's African-American, and my mom is white. So they got married and had me and my three sisters. All my sisters have the same sort of skin color as I do. And then me and my three sisters went off and we all got married. An interesting part of the topic that we might talk about today is all of my sisters and myself, we all married white people. And then so we all had kids through that. And then based on all that, though, our family grew and grew and grew. And if I had the picture, maybe I can find it. But our family today it is a very diverse family. We do family pictures. There's color everywhere. White, and you don't know who's who. So I've grown up in a very diverse family, but that's sort of the topic we're going to talk about today. So I just going to give you a perspective of what my background was growing up. And I grew up obviously in the 60s and 70s as a biracial kid. Now, biracial kids were not a lot of kids out there biracial when I grew up. So I was curious in talking to Cecil about what maybe things his grandkids are experiencing and his son and daughter-in-law in today's generation with biracial kids compared to what I experienced growing up as a biracial individual. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And as a start, this it's not necessarily going to be an interview of John. It's just his perspective on the subject matter, as well as, asking questions from what I have seen and dealt with as it relates to those kind of relationships. I think one of the things I'm looking at is we can go back to your parents, and they got together. I think the picture you showed, it was 1958. 58.
Yeah, 58.
So with all of the issues that were going on back then, and allegedly still going on today, why do you believe people got into relationships?
So is the question why people are in an interracial relationship?
With all the issues as it relates to race, why would you go down that road?
So the question is really kind of, okay, so why would my mom or my dad bother being in an interracial relationship in the 50s when it wasn't accepted, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess I'd say love. I don't know, but let's just call it love.
You're in one. I mean, why on you?
That's why I'm calling it love. I mean, what else do you call it? I mean, it's love. So I was trying to think about that question, Cecil, because I figured you might ask me that question. It's like there are certain, there's a couple of, answers to that. One would be maybe a person prefers a certain skin color. That's a perfectly legit reason, I think, right? Maybe it's just fall in love and they're not considered skin color, right? Yeah, so those are, to me, that's kind of the reasons. I mean, I don't really know. I can't speak for him. For me, it's, when I, fell in love, it's fell in love. It didn't matter, skin color. Now, we're going to get into this question of, well, race have I dated? Well, we could talk about that as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, Even just to hang around somebody that's of a different race. I mean, I went to tech school in Biloxi, Mississippi, but there was one of our classmates was down there, and we hung out a lot. We would go to New Orleans, we would go out to eat, we would go here and there together. People would kind of assume maybe we were dating. We weren't, but we were in Mississippi, 1983. Why, it's almost like, well, why would you put yourself in that kind of a scenario, in that kind of an environment?
Well, let me ask you this. See, so I guess she was white,
Yeah,
your friend. Yeah, and so the perception of people around you may have been you were dating, right? So you look like an interracial couple, right? Well, tell me what did you experience? Just even in that sort of perception, did you experience anything different? Did you think it was no different than when you dated a black woman? Did you have, or maybe let me take that back. I should assume you dated a black woman. So what was that experience like for you?
that particular experience, um, and this might be just my perception, but coming out of the academy, I was fairly muscular. And so I just feel like people were intimidated as far as being, wanting to say anything to me like, "Hey, what are you doing?" But I don't know. But my experience growing up was primarily in the white community. My father was in the military, but his career field forced him into states like Maine and upstate New York, where there's nothing but white people, and you either get along or you're isolated. It's easier. It has always been easy for me to interact with white people than it is with black people. Even before we moved to Maine, we lived in Maryland. When I started middle school, the people that gave me the most grief were the black kids. So I
Why?
just found it easy. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Were you like a mean guy or something? Or
No.
would you cause it on your
at that
own?
at
I
that
mean,
time,
was it because you were, well, I'm trying to figure out, was it because you were black or because you were just Cecil Grant? They didn't like you.
no. Back at that age, I was skinny, nerdy. I had a book bag, and my mother didn't allow us to wear jeans, so I had slacks and button-down shirt going to school, and I didn't fit in with the crowd. I wasn't, similar to that black crowd.
What was the demographics of your school?
I couldn't tell you. I
I mean,
don't.
was it a lot of blacks or a small number of blacks?
It was a lot of. It was
Okay.
black. Yeah.
So were you like sort of labeled as I don't know, not a black person?
I felt like, I mean, I do remember sitting at the table of misfits for lunch, but like I said, then we weren't there in Maryland long enough. When I was in elementary school in Maryland, I had no problem with anybody. But again, that school, I felt there was more white than black. And then when we moved to Maine, it was hard. There was like two blacks in my entire middle school, me and somebody else.
So do you have to remind yourself that you're black, Cecil?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I'm gonna get.
I do know what I do know what you mean by that. And this is my response to that. I would then ask you, what black am I to you? Are we talking about, do I have to remind myself that my skin is black, or that I'm black, which is some undefined something I'm supposed to be because my skin is black?
Well, I'll tell you why I brought it up. Because when me and my sisters were talking about this, right, and we were actually talking about how come all of us actually married white people, right? So we started thinking about it. And I was like, okay. So my sister said, well, John, you go out and do some research on this. I said, okay, I'll go do some research. So I did some research on biracial kids and who they married.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because when I grew up, a little background, and so you kind of understand where my perception is. When I grew up, my father was in the military. He was in the Air Force, but he was stationed away a lot. So me and my sister pretty much were raised by my mom, who was the white person in the family. So we really were raised by her. And so we all thought that, well, maybe we all married white people because our mom's white and we spent most of our time with our mom, right? So I did the research. I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's a good theory. So what the research said is that is a predictor of who you will marry, the dominant parent in the relationship of a black and a white father and mother, and who is the dominant parent, who has more influence on the kids, is an influencer. That's what we thought our mom did to us. The other thing was the bigger influencer, Cecil, was the environment you grew up in, regardless of the race of the dominant parent. So when I look back at my life, and I think you just described the same thing, is that we grew up in predominantly white culture. Period. End of story. Like there were very few biracial kids that I could, have an affinity to. And when I was in grade school and high school, it was either are you white or are you black? I mean, and that's from the outside of people looking at us, right? But we grew up in nothing but white communities.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? And so the research actually said that depending on your community you grow up in is what you may end up marrying because you more affiliate with that group. So same with you didn't grow up. So people ask me, well, how many black women have you dated? 0. Not because I don't want to date a black woman. It's because when I grew up, I went to predominantly white middle schools, predominantly white high schools. We went to the Air Force Academy. I don't think there was any black women there, were there? I don't remember. Maybe one or was there that many of them? And I don't remember that many black women in Colorado Springs either.
In our class? No, yeah.
So if you want to be, if you want to date a woman, or what do you date, right? So in my perception, in my opinion, is that because the environment I was in, I really never had a lot of opportunity to date black women. Not that I didn't want to, I just didn't. And when people are like, well, why didn't you? Well, okay, so let's say in high school, let's say that I think our high school ratio was maybe 10% blacks. Okay, so you take 10% blacks. How many percent of those are women, right? So I'm a high school kid, want to date a woman. I don't really care the color, personally. But there's there might be 15 black girls in high school. Does that mean I gotta want to date one of those just because they're black?
Exactly.
And people are, well, you're black, you have to date one of them. So when you said earlier today, you said, well, obviously you're biracial. That's been a surprise to me throughout my whole life. There are people that tell me they can't tell what I am. They may tell me I'm Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Hawaiian, even a white guy with a good tan. But I'm like, really? No, I know how some people look at me, regardless of, I'm not as dark as Cecil. When he and I talk about that, I mean, we could talk about the black folk and the shades and the things that come with different shades of being black. But Cecil, I feel it, regardless of what people say. I walk into a convenience store late at night, I can feel the tension. If it's just me. I mean, so people can say what they want about it. And so when I asked you, do you have to remind yourself that you're black? It was in the context of, I believe you grew up like I did in predominantly white society, in a white community, in a white culture. And so you would tend to see yourself as that culture, even though you're not.
Yeah.
That was my point.
Yes, you're right.
So even me, sometimes I have to look and say, oh, wait, I am dark. Understand? Now, here's the thing that I think is funny, though. Being biracial, and this, I kind of want to get a little bit of this, is I had this conversation with my son, right, who's now, he is now 3/4 white and 1/4 black, right? So we were talking about this. It was really good. And we were talking about whether, there's, we were talking about the black culture compared to what we'll call later on, you and I will call ghetto culture, all those things, right? He and I were talking about that. And I said to him, one of the things I firmly believe is that while I grew up in a predominantly white community, there is a thing of black DNA. There just is.
You told me that.
Right? I told my son, my mom and dad didn't teach me how to dance, but I can dance. I'm good at sports. Yeah. All those stereotypes of blacks.
But you're good at golf. You're not supposed to be
I'm good at golf. But Tiger Woods, wait a minute, but is Tiger Woods black? Or is he black but they claim him as black? Okay.
Exactly. There you go. That's a whole nother story.
But my point to my son was there is certainly, and I think there's a DNA of culture. It just is, right? Like people have a certain DNA. Black people have a certain DNA. I don't know how to explain it, but they do. I
I
just feel
think
like
it's to,
that's a true statement.
I think you try to blend in, although I don't think it works. Because I remember going to New York City where my aunt lived. She said, "Hey, go outside and hang out with the people down there." I'm like, "Excuse me?" "Yeah, go on outside and hang out with the kids that are out there." Oh, I went out and stood by a tree for about 10 minutes. And then I went back upstairs. Because although my skin may be dark, as soon as I open my mouth and talk, they're going to say, "You ain't from around here." And I'm not going to deal with that. I don't want to be a part of that. So for me, the question or the point you made of going into a store late at night or going into a store period, and you can feel people maybe looking at you. Well, one, if it's late at night, I think I'd look at anybody, white or black, if you came in the store. But two, when I walk into a store, I don't have that mindset. If you want to look at me, that's your issue. That isn't mine. I walk in, I'm coming to get what I'm coming to get, and I'm leaving. And if you think I'm here to steal and rob and rape, that's your problem. That's not what I do. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, I didn't. It didn't mean like it's just it's a perception, right?
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
I don't walk in the store thinking, oh my god, I got to be really. No, I don't do that. But when I walk in the store and then the perception hits me in the face like, oh, I forgot. It's me walking into the
Oh, yeah.
store.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
why this lady is kind of looking a little bit nervous. I'm not going to do anything to you. I promise. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's not like I
Yeah.
walk in,
Yeah. And
but
it's the same.
it hits you in the face.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
those situations tell you, they remind you
Yes.
that
That you're
you have
black.
skin color. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and with all that comes with all the other all the other profiles and all the other things and all the characteristics, right? That's what I'm saying to you. So it is different, and so just for again to button it up, the research did say that typically it's more of the environment that you raise in is what you will end up probably marrying in terms of that.
And kind of going back to what I grew up the same way, the white population, but there was a point in my life early where I said I would have no issue dating a white girl, but I had no plans on marrying a white girl. The woman I did marry, like the second or third time we went out, I invited her over to my house. We were chit chatting, and I put on some music on the stereo, and it was an Elton John record. And she had no issue with the music, but she also grew up in the military, also grew up around diverse music, diverse culture. You've talked with her, she doesn't have any kind of ghetto culture to her. So with her, it was a thing of, oh, she might be somebody I could be interested in as a black woman, because if I'm going to listen to Elton John, then I finding out later, then I have to tolerate listening to Barry Manilow, which she likes, and these other musics that most black people would say, "Why are you listening to that? Black people don't listen to that." So she doesn't have that culture, the deep culture that would have driven me away from wanting to hang out with her.
So Cecil, let me ask you, because I think it's interesting in terms of, like, you talk about your music, you talk about growing up so basically, if I'm sensing correctly, it sounds like that when you were growing up and you started liking Elton John, did your parents go, wait, Cecil, hold on, that's white stuff. Cecil, let me introduce you to Luther Vandross and reggae and whatever you want to call it. Like, what influence did your parents have on you culturally?
Culturally, both my parents are from the Virgin Islands, so we listened to a lot of calypso music on the radio, on the stereo. But we also had, Barbra Streisand records. We had Bing Crosby. My dad was a huge jazz fan, so we had he had eight track or eight reel to reel with Duke Ellington and all kinds of stuff. But then he also had R&B. We had Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Temptations. So there was never any. So they knew what I was listening to, because they bought me a stereo and they could hear it in my room. But they never said, "Hey, we don't listen to that. They just, because their musical taste was, I thought, pretty diverse.
Well, I'm just going to, I'll just throw this out there. I don't know the answer to it. But given when I did all that research about, how you, do you think that if maybe our parents were more, I'm going to say more culturally black, would we have turned out differently? Like, what if your parents did not listen to anything but black music or watch anything but black television, whatever you want to call it, whatever. I'm just asking generally, are we a product of our socialization?
I think you can be, but again, I would say from their perspective, if they only listened to black music, that would have been something at home. But going to people's homes, other friends' homes, I mean, they listen to, Steely Dan and all the other, so in my mind, I think it was a thing of you either want to have friends outside of your home or you just want to, be stuck at home and be in this little, this cubbyhole of only one certain genre. So, and I quite frankly have gotten to where, as it relates to music or anything, it's, do I like it? If I like it, then I'll listen to it. I don't care. If it comes out and I like it, then I'll listen to it. And so I think that goes to people as well. I don't choose my friends based on the color of their skin. I choose them on whether we get along, we can talk about similar topics, we can have good conversation. And I will dismiss you if you can't do that, no matter what your race is. Whereas I feel like there are a lot of cultures who I'm only going to be friends with these type of people, no matter how discombobulated they are, and I just don't do that.
What challenges have you had as a grandfather of some kids?
So far, none. The oldest one is 7, and the other one is 3. But just looking ahead with the discussion that came starting in 2020, I think, as it relates to, blacks being oppressed and whites being the oppressor. I mean, you got two parents that are of different races. So is your mother or whoever, the white one, are they the oppressor and the other one's oppressed? I mean, how does a child deal with that drama that they're going to be presented with or going to hear about at some point? So it's more for me, not that I've experienced anything in regards to that, but trying to look ahead and say, how will I respond if they are presented with this topic? Not only talking to them, but talking to their parents about it.
One of the things I was thinking about with your grandkids, because I thought about with myself growing up, is, how are the parents going to, because it's going to be inevitable. I should say it's going to be inevitable. What happened to me was people still want to put you in a box. They want you to be in one of the boxes. Because at the time I grew up, there wasn't biracial box I could jump into, right? With all my other biracial friends, right? So either to your point, and I think that's what we're both discovering here with this conversation is we grew up in a white community. So they still try to put me in a box, right? Like you belong with the black people, or you can't be white. But everybody was white just about. So anyway, so for your daughter-in-law, how are they approaching talking to their kids about being what I would say is probably a minority in themselves, not having biracial kids to identify with, and how are they preparing them for when these people start to put them in the box? Because they will try to, in my opinion. It's just a natural occurrence.
I don't know. Again, like I said earlier, just based on their age, we really haven't broached that subject yet because I don't think either one of them would really understand it. The 7-year-old might, but it's still a little early. But it is something to think about. The discussion I had with my wife was that if you try to place the child into that color box and say you're black or you're white, are you discarding the other culture, the other race of that is part of who you are? So like your mother is Irish, right? If you only identified as black, are you discarding her heritage, her influence on you?
Oh, in my opinion, 100%. 100%. And that's been my philosophy all my life. Like, I don't let them put me in a box. I am a biracial person. I have 50% white and 50% black flowing through this body. So when they try to put me as and obviously it's easier to put me as a black person because, I have skin color.
Yes, yes.
When I try to put in that box, I feel like it is a disrespect to my mother.
Yes.
Right. And while I realize I live in a white world, right, I don't disrespect my father's culture either. Right. I mean, that's why I embrace, the black culture. And I'm going to call it the black culture that I, embrace. Not, we can talk about the ghetto culture, but let's talk about the black culture.
Whole different. Yes.
I say that, and this is just me. I mean, I can only speak for myself, and I feel like I have a black culture within my body. It's like, to your point.
From your dad.
This is where we're different here. Cecil, you said that, your parents go, hey, go out there and play with those kids, right? And I'm assuming they were black kids.
Yeah, in New York.
You have your own slang. And Cecil don't, right?
I don't have it. I can fake it, but I can't.
Cecil, what I'm telling you is, which is interesting to me, because what I'm telling you, what I told my son is, nobody taught me how to do that, but I would have no problem going out there and I could be black as can be.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it feels natural. I don't know how to describe it, but that wouldn't bother me.
Mm.
I wouldn't even think about that. I go out there and whatever. So my point is, it's a natural reaction for me. I don't know how to describe it, but if I'm with my black buddies, right, which I don't have a lot because there ain't that many black people around my neighborhood anyway, but my black friends, I can feel like I can get down and we can start looking like we're a bunch of black guys just hanging out. Or I can get with my, white friends and like regular white person.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it is a natural thing, and it's hard for me to explain to my son that I think there is a natural thing between white culture and black culture that's in a DNA that I got from my dad and I got from my mom.
Yeah. So,
but I do want to mention one thing about your kids, though, because one of the things I did realize is that when you're young and they're young right now, they don't understand why they are so different than everybody else. Because I don't know how many biracial kids they interact with.
Yeah, there's a couple. Because one of his friends is in a biracial relationship, and they have biracial kids. But again, it's not it's only one that I can think of.
Kids they go to, so they'll start. I mean, that's their one. They don't right now. They don't understand why they're so different. Yeah. Is what I'm trying to tell you. But they will as the kids start to say, "Why are you so different?"
They have two cousins who are dark like me, and it's funny to listen to them talk as they've gotten older. They refer to the darker ones are brown. They refer to white people as pink. And they find it interesting when they're playing in the bathtub that the biracial one's hair, when it's wet, it's stringy. So they're starting to notice some differences, but not really putting together why I'm brown and you're almost pink. You're not pink, but you're pinkish. So it's getting to where, as cousins that are dark skinned, they're going to reach an age at some point where they say, you're not as dark as me, or your mother is white and your father is black. How did that, how? Because they're kids. It's a question. Is it legitimate? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
for a kid to ask. Yeah.
So yeah, they'll have to deal with that as they grow up, and then I don't know how how the parents are.
Yeah, I
really don't know how to, because one of the things my parents did not do, they didn't really talk to us about race. So we they didn't sit down and back then and have all the the great conversations your parents want to talk to you about how to deal with the world and race, and we didn't have those conversations. So we figured it out all our own, and then we just dealt with it. And again, there are certain things that just hit you right in the face. I mean, I remember being at McDonald's a mile from my house here with my daughter when she was about 3, just me and her. And a lady came by and said, "Oh, your daughter's so cute, but she's not yours, right?" I said, "Yeah, she's mine."
What do you mean she's not mine?
No, I'm serious. That's a serious story. Like, no, she's
I
mine.
don't know where do people get off even making comments like, I don't know you. I don't know you well enough to say that.
I don't know. I don't know where people, they just.
Feel obligated to say stuff that's stupid.
So
But
now I also know that, see, so I think you mentioned one time in a conversation, you talked about privileges of shades of black. Was that you?
I think I mentioned that I feel like we as black people, we tend to eat ourselves. We kill ourselves. You know, where if your skin is too dark, people talk about you. If your skin's too light, they talk about you. If your hair is too nappy or kinky, they talk about you. If it's too straight, you're trying to be white. If you don't talk a certain way, you're trying to be something, you know, if you just and all of that I have found it isn't amongst the black people I hang out with now, but again, like you said, it's not many, but in the past it was. I mean, I constantly was hearing, you don't sound black. Why are you talking white? I think I made a reference to the fact that, you know, one of my sons, he's darker than I am, was referred to as Kunta Kinte in high school by black kids.
Because you're so dark.
Why would you do that? Why would you say that?
Have you asked your son why he married a white woman? The same question you asked, I mean, you posed that question earlier.
Yeah, I believe he had, just through observation, seen how black women acted, and I say women in high school, the black girls, how they acted, carried themselves, how they dealt with relationships in high school, and he didn't want to have anything to do with that.
So I think he just wrote an article on black athletes marrying white women.
Yeah. Why is that? Yeah.
I think there was one of the pro basketball player got in trouble because they asked him that same question, and he said exactly kind of what you said. He said because the black women were too argumentative or something like that, some kind of characteristic to that, and he got in all kinds of trouble for it.
I remember a story my mother told. We lived in Maine, and there was a black guy who was married to this, and I remember vividly, she was a white lady with red hair. And I didn't ask. I didn't, you know, at that time, I didn't care. She said, the reason why this man is married to a white woman is because he was married to a black woman before, but they went out to eat dinner one time and had ribs, and she got down. He said, oh no, I'm not having none of that. Is it a true story? I don't know, but that's what she told me. And I have made public the story. As you know, Cheryl and I were married, then we got divorced. And the last girl that I went out with before I said, okay, this is stupid, let me get back with my wife, black lady took her out to dinner or to lunch, and it was just a perception. But whatever she was eating, she wanted hot sauce. And I just said, I can't do this. I don't want to be, I don't, this is not my kind of woman.
The girl, dude, you need some help. The girl like hot sauce. She got checked off the list. Man, you did. We need to get off. We need to get
I'm
off.
very particular.
I need to talk to you about that. Man,
And I like hot sauce. I'm a hot sauce person.
Hot sauce and pepper too. No, you're out. You're out. And you're gonna drink a soda? No,
I
you're
think
out.
it was the way she asked for it. I don't know. Anyway, that was me.
Yeah, that's not. So, see, I do want to ask you though, for your son and your daughter-in-law, is he or she had to deal with any black women giving her bad looks or giving him bad looks?
I have not heard of that, but again, the majority of his male friends are white. When she has one black girl that is her friend, but she doesn't have a slew of them. So no.
Did he date other white women?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In high school, yeah.
I and my ex, we certainly experienced, some of that during our lifetime.
Yeah.
Experienced it. She's experienced it. It is something that that happens. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. So it's because of, I think the perception is that then if we're talking about a black guy and a white woman, is that the black guy values the white woman more than they value a black woman. and then black women take that as they're being devalued. At least that's what I've heard from women that I've had conversations with about that topic. So I see that, but it's I don't know what to say about that. Anyway.
Do you think that the biracial relationship is a big deal only with white black, or what if you're black Asian or white Asian or Mexican Asian or Mexican black, or what about, is it only that the only one that brings fuel
To the
fire is black white?
I think so. I mean, I think that's where the fuel is, where the issue is. I mean, and you don't see as much black Asian as you might see black white. I mean, there's just not a lot of that around. I mean, and seriously, even today, when I meet someone that's biracial, it's like Christmas to me. I mean, I don't know. See, I don't know if people really understand this. Like, if you're black, right? I mean, there's a lot of black people still out there. If you're white, there's a lot of white people out there. There's a lot of Hispanic people out there. There are not a lot of biracial. And I don't know the numbers. I haven't looked at it, but it's not like I'm meeting people of my culture, my race, every day.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do meet someone, it's interesting to me because it's like I'm a kid, a baby. I'm like, tell me about your life today. What's it like today? How are you dealing with it? All the things I dealt with? Matter of fact, when I was Ubering weeks ago, I picked up a biracial young woman.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was Hispanic.
You thought what?
I thought she was Hispanic.
Okay.
And I picked her up and we started talking. And she goes, "Oh, she's biracial." And I was like lit up. Like, oh, well, and she was young and she had a boyfriend. And talk about a crazy story. Her dad, who was white, married a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The dad became a racist.
What?
And disowned the kids.
Wow.
Truly disowned them.
Wow.
I'm just saying, though, my point is that what people don't really understand is for biracial individuals, we don't have a lot of affinity groups.
And so as you talk about that and you go down the line, so your mother was white, your father was black, she had you. You're biracial. You married a white lady. Now you had two kids who are biracial.
Who are now quarter black.
Yes. Now, hypothetically, let's say one of them marries a black person, one marries a white person. And then even as I recall, if you can, maybe you can send me that picture of your entire family, and I'll try to put it up on the, with the podcast. So you got a family like that where you can't tell what anybody is. So at what point do you stop labeling people as, well, she's black, but she's biracial and he's quarter, but at what point do you stop doing that?
Honestly, and it's because the mixtures get, then one of our kids or whatever marries a black person and they have a kid. So we just stopped. Like you said, you look at that picture.
Yeah.
You can't tell. There is like dark, light, white. It's like,
what do we got going on here?
We're it. And so, and it's funny, me and my kids, when we talk about my kids, they believe that people still look at them and they'll see them as black. I don't see it.
No,
I tell my kids, ain't nobody look at you guys like you're black. Look at my picture, my kid.
Your daughter, for sure. She.
Well, see, you might be able to see that. Look.
Yeah, your daughter don't look black at all. Now, on that one,
they don't look black.
With her hair, she does. But no, they don't. They don't. And I've seen recent pictures of them.
Yeah.
I've seen more recent pictures of them, and they don't.
But they don't look black. But they think they look black. I don't understand. They better not watch this podcast. I'm only kidding, guys. No, I can say that because they do. They think that people might look at them as they're black.
But so whether you're biracial or not, and you talk about what I look at you as black. What does that? Maybe we talked about it before. What does that mean? So if somebody looks at your daughter and says, "Well, she's black," what does that mean?
Well, I mean, honestly, it means everything that the society talks about, and all the ills of black and white and relationships. Well, if you're labeled black, then that means you deal with all the stuff that black people deal with.
Okay.
Right? Racist, prejudice, whatever you want to call it, that's what it means. It means you're labeled into a group that has a brand that you are now part of that brand and part of that stereotype and part of that profile and part, just like me, right? When I go into the store at night, like people don't know I'm biracial, but because I'm biracial and I have color, I'm branded as black sometimes. Or like I said, I've been called so many different things. I don't even whatever. Maybe I live whatever. And so, yeah. So I think that's what it means. That's the impact.
So, and I think I mentioned to you that obviously you look at my skin color, it's dark. So I'm identified, labeled as black. But my culture is different in that both my parents were born and raised in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So when you look at my skin color, you make a lot of assumptions that are incorrect because I was raised differently. And I've been laughed at again by black people because I don't know or didn't know black culture. For example, we ate for breakfast from time to time cream of wheat. We didn't eat grits. So I went to somebody's house to spend the night with a friend. The morning, his mother's making grits. I said, "What's that?" She said, "It's grits." I said, "Oh, it's like cream of wheat?" "No, it's grits. You don't know what grits are?" "No, I don't know what grits are." And it was a big joke to them that I didn't know what grits were. But I'm black, so they assume I should know what grits. I didn't know.
See, if you lived in my house, you'd have had both grits and cream of wheat. I love cream of wheat with some jelly and my grits with some butter. See, that's the difference. So what it sounds like, though, and you bring up a good question. Because your parents are from the U.S. Virgin Islands, would we consider them black people as we talk about American blacks? I think that's kind of what you're alluding to because the culture of the black folks in the Virgin Islands, I would say, is probably a little bit different than the culture of black people in the United States. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I'm assuming that that's why you were raised in a little different culture, I would say, than what I would call the typical black U.S. person. So that's that could be some reason why you're a little bit more. The word is raised in a not quite the black culture.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think at the time, if I remember some of the conversations I had with my mother, they both made an effort being in the military to try to be stationed in places that weren't overly black. So obviously, well, not obviously, but I was born in Denver, Colorado. From there, we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where my youngest sister was born. From there, we went to Germany. From Germany, we came to Virginia, but my parents were not happy with being in Virginia because that was the South. And then we went to Maryland, and then from there, we went to Bangor, Maine, and then upstate New York. So they wanted to keep us away from the black culture.
yeah. There you go. There you have
it. Yep, probably. It runs into the same thing that you said earlier, where you're in school and there's two black girls and you're supposed to date them because they're black. That's all. I can only choose between those. Why? And what if there's two black girls and three black men? Split them? Shit. I mean, what are we doing here? You can't. There was a lot of challenges growing up because you knew there was a difference, and I think a lot of times I I felt it more so than the white kids did because they were, especially when I lived in Maine. Those people were some of the nicest people I'd ever been around, and you know, I started playing football there in high school, and the that helped because then when I started school, because you had the summer workouts, so when I started school, I had seniors and juniors and sophomores who would vouch for me as a good dude because hey, he's out here working hard on the football field, so we don't mess with him. If anybody had ever had that thought, again, it was because I was working hard. It wasn't for any other reason. I don't think at some point they stopped looking at skin color and it was just, okay, he's a hard worker. He comes to practice. He's, does the stuff that's required, and we like him. So I think that's where I got my feelings that, if you put in the effort and work hard, people kind of have a hard time not accepting you if you're a hard worker, if you put forth the effort. If you're a slouch, then that kind of carries over, and it's easy to say now, well, he's a slouch, and oh, by the way, he's black. So maybe the next black I see, which might be in 3 or 4 years, maybe they're a slouch. Or it just, I feel like there's so much emphasis and so much, put onto skin color. And then we heap this onto our grandkids and our children, specifically if they end up in a biracial situation. And now, you've asked me, have we sat down and talked to them? And again, I don't feel like it shouldn't even have to be something that has to be discussed. It does. It probably will. But why? Why are we still doing this? Why?
I mean, see, the reason I brought that up is because, like I said, my parents, they didn't talk to us about it at all. So
Yeah.
you can either leave your kids to figure it out on their own from the pressure they get from their kid, from peer pressure and all that stuff, or you can have a conversation about it, tell them what they're about to experience.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, to me,
Did you
that
tell your kids?
I learned. I mean, yeah, we talked about race all the time. So in the challenges, and I talked to them about, like, they're not going to deal with the same challenges I dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not. I mean, you can say what you want, but JT walks in the store at night, he's not going to get the same feel I got. I don't care what you say. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
Talk about it. But I'm just saying that one of the things that I feel like, we just didn't know enough as kids. We all had to figure it out on our own. I mean, we just did. And, there wasn't any, like, go to the counselor and talk to the counselor about how do I deal with being in school with all these white people and a few black people, and I don't fit in one of those groups. So how do I deal with that? And nobody tells you that. We figure it out. So that's it's so you ask the question. It is important because they're going to deal with it. They're going to have to deal with it. It's just the way the world is. So I just think it's good to talk to them about it. So that they know that they have the choice. It's not anybody else's choice. If they want to marry a white person, a black person, a Hispanic person, whatever, it's their choice. It's not what their society's telling them they need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And did you feel like there was a certain group that gave you more grief than others as it relates to being biracial, or did nobody care? Did somebody say, hey, why are you trying to be white? You black. Why you listen to that music? You black, or whatever. Why you playing golf? Who you think you are?
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't really recall. I just remember mostly it was more, the white folks, letting me be in the group. And I mean it in a kind of strange way, right? Because, like, the black folks didn't necessarily say you have to be black, if I remember, and there weren't that many of them. I mean, it wasn't that a big deal. I'm talking about high school and college, So it really the real challenge was some white people will still go, wait, but you're not white. Yeah. So you're not, you don't get to hang out with us because you're not really white. So that's where I think any challenge I had in terms of the two groups and where they tried to put me was that. So anyway, we probably need to shut this down when people get bored with us.
If they're still listening.
We're going to get to the real good race stuff when we talk about the race stuff and all the stuff going on today.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that really, really is, we need to talk about and talk through.
So like I said at the beginning, John and I are going to continue this dialogue monthly. If you guys have topics you think you'd like to hear us discuss, we'd love to hear that. Talk about race, again, talk more about retirement, stuff that we're doing, discuss our experiences as Uber drivers. I have jumped into the world of Uber, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. So anyway, hit us up. Tell us what you think, and we will see you next month. And it probably will be focused on retirement, but that could change. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, have a good day.
Thanks, Cecil. Appreciate it, buddy.
You bet.